News Alert. We have now obtained the first excerpts of a House panel's memo that reportedly reveals surveillance abuses at the highest reaches of the FBI and DOJ. That memo has not been released, but Fox News has exclusive first excerpts from it. The House is approving for it to be made public, and we are told that there are no redactions in this. That is big news in itself. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live in Washington with the very latest. Catherine?
Well, thanks, Harris. In the last few minutes, Fox News has been able to confirm that the 4-page memo has now been declassified, and that letter was sent from the White House to that effect. That means for folks at home, it will be posted on the House Intelligence Committee's website, probably in fairly short order so that everyone can read it. Based on our reporting and intelligence gathering here at Fox News, we understand that there are a number of significant headlines in the memo. What we understand is that a senior law enforcement official testified during a closed classified session to this House committee that without the dossier, this is the dossier that was funded by the DNC and Clinton campaign and compiled by Fusion GPS, the opposition research firm, they would not have been able to obtain at least one surveillance warrant for a member of the Trump campaign. Number two, we also understand that the FBI and Justice Department relied in part on media reporting to lend credibility to the dossier when they made applications to the National Security Court or the FISA court for these warrants. What's key is, as we've shown through our ongoing reporting here at Fox News, the Fusion GPS and the British spy who gathered the research were part of an active campaign to brief major American media outlets. So the thing to look for in this memo is whether you've got some of the same media organizations that were briefed on the dossier, their reporting being used to lend credibility to the dossier. Okay, so that's what they call circular reporting in intelligence circles. We also understand that after Christopher Steele, the British spy, his contact was broken off with the FBI, that he was able to continue to provide information to the Bureau, along with the company that was paying him, Fusion GPS, through Bruce Orr. This is the Justice Department official who was demoted after it came to light that he had a number of undisclosed meetings with Fusion GPS and Steele. Harris.
Right, Catherine, we will come back to as the news warrants, but we want to right now go to the Oval Office where the president is meeting with defectors of North Korea. 6 of them live in South Korea now, and he's invited them to come to the White House. 2 of them live in the United States. And among his comments now, in a rather provocative action to highlight human rights violations in North Korea and put pressure on North Korea, as you know, because of their nuclear weaponry and all of that they're trying to develop. In order to do that, he's invited these defectors to the White House. But the topic of this important surveillance memo has come up in his time in the Oval Office. And that's what we want to show you. Let's watch together.
Thank you. I think it's terrible. You want to know the truth? I think it's a disgrace. What's going on in this country, I think it's a disgrace. The memo was sent to Congress. It was declassified. Congress will do whatever they're going to do. But I think it's a disgrace what's happening in our country. And when you look at that and you see that and so many other things, what's going on, a lot of people should be ashamed of themselves, and much worse than that. So I sent it over to Congress. They will do what they're going to do. Whatever they do is fine. It was declassified. And let's see what happens. But a lot of people should be ashamed. Thank you very much.
You're not concerned that the FBI doesn't want the memo out?
Thank you very much. You figure that one out.
We haven't seen it yet.
I don't think so. These are just great people that have suffered incredibly. There were many, many others like them that have suffered so much. And they were here, and I said, let's tell you a story very quickly. We have others in a different room, as I told you, that are really petrified to be here. Petrified. So it's tough stuff. It's tough stuff. Well, we're doing a lot. We've done more than, we have many administrations that should have acted on this a long time ago. When when it wasn't at this kind of when we weren't in this kind of a position. You know, we ran out of road. You know the expression. The road really ended. They could have done it 12 years ago. They could have done it 20 years ago. They could have done it 4 years ago and 2 years ago. We have no road left. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, we'll get through the Olympics and maybe something good can come out of the Olympics. Who knows? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Do you still have confidence in the President's time?
Thank you very much, everybody. I better not get involved.
So you see the president there, the last of it, talking about relations with North Korea. He says, we have run out of road. Let's see where we are after the Olympics. But that bombshell memo, as some would term it, that is now about to go public, Fox News has obtained exclusive excerpts from that, and we've been reporting that through our correspondents here. The president saying a lot of people should be ashamed. Let's go right away to Chief White House Correspondent John Roberts, who's live, obviously, in front of the White House. John?
And Harris just got off a conference call with intelligence officials who were walking reporters through the contents of the memo. And one of the real headlines here is you heard Catherine Herridge talking about a high-ranking official who testified that without that dodgy dossier, the unverified dossier compiled by Fusion GPS and Christopher Steele, there would have been no hope for a FISA memo. That official, according to the memo, who provided that testimony was none other than the deputy director of the FBI, the former deputy director of the FBI, Andrew McCabe, who resigned suddenly on Monday after the FBI director, Christopher Wray, had a chance to read that memo on Capitol Hill on Sunday night. Not connecting any dots here, just pointing out that those are the dots. Now, the president clearly is unhappy with what he read in the memo. He said that he thinks it's a disgrace. People should be ashamed of themselves. He went further in a tweet this morning expressing his displeasure with certain members of the FBI, certainly not the rank and file, tweeting out, quote, the top leadership and investigators of the FBI and the Justice Department have politicized the sacred investigative process in favor of Democrats and against Republicans, something which would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. Rank and file are great people. What the president has been saying about this memo and that tweet drew a sharp response from the FBI, former FBI director James Comey. Let's put up what Comey tweeted earlier. All should appreciate the FBI speaking up. I wish more of our leaders would, but take heart. American history shows that in the long run, weasels and liars never hold the field. So long as good people stand up, not a lot of schools or streets named for Joe McCarthy. So the feud between the White House, the Republican leadership in the Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence and the former FBI director continues apace, getting fairly visceral there. I mean, no wonder, because James Comey, a fierce defender of the men and women at the FBI. But this memo that has been released, and we'll get a chance to read through the actual text very soon, Harris, certainly illuminating that in the eyes of the people who wrote this memo, and that would be Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and Trey Gowdy, who's the chairman of the Government Oversight Committee, there were some bad actors at the FBI, and that the information that led to the FISA warrants against certain individuals in the Trump campaign was based on information that perhaps ordinarily would not have warranted a FISA court issuing those warrants. Harris?
Yeah, John Harwood, this is Melissa. John Roberts. This is Melissa Francis. Let me ask you quickly. What happens now? I mean, when you look at these charges and what's in here, it is at least everything that everyone expected and anticipated. It's not, nothing that we had heard others trying to deflect, that it was going to come out and fall flat. What happens now?
It's unclear. When the existence of this memo was first made public, people were suggesting that it may be the undoing of the entire special counsel investigation. I don't necessarily know that that will happen. Certainly, Andrew McCabe is no longer with the FBI. And again, we've just had some excerpts here that were given to us. We haven't had a chance to read the full memo in context, so it might be a little early to make predictions about what will happen. But certainly, one thing that you can be assured of will happen. This will be a topic of broad discussion and accusations flying back and forth across the partisan aisle for the next few days, if not longer than that, Melissa.
Okay, John, I'm going to jump back in. We obviously are sitting here together, so we may toggle a little bit. And we have Howard Kurtz on the couch for us. We've got Jessica Tarlov and Lisa Booth. So we may get to talk with you one-on-one in different instances. But I want to ask you about this. So there are quotes from the memo, these excerpts that Fox News has exclusively obtained ahead of the release of this memo. And one of them has Christopher Steele, that British spy, admitting to Bruce Orr, the employee at the DOJ that now has come down a couple rungs as they have punished him in some way for having maybe some undisclosed relationship with possibly the company that put together that anti-Trump dossier because his wife worked there.
It's not an undisclosed relationship. His wife Nellie worked for Fusion GPS during that time.
Steele admitted to Orr his feelings against candidate Trump in September of 2016, when Steele told Orr that he, Steele, was desperate that Donald Trump not get elected and was passionate about him not being president. Again, that's a quote from the memo, from the excerpts that Fox News has obtained exclusively. Your reporting on this.
And again, I mean, this feeds into the whole narrative, which is the crux of this memo, that it was spurious and specious information that led to the granting of those FISA warrants to begin with. You heard Catherine Herridge reporting a short time ago that Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS briefed some reporters on the contents of the dossier, which she referred to as circular reporting. Sources in the intelligence area have said to me that what they did was they've been a little more forthright about this. Not forthright, but they've been a little more strident about it, let's say, to say that what happened was that Christopher Steele ginned up a fake news story in order to sell the credibility of that dossier, which was then taken by the FBI to the FISA court and used to obtain warrants for surveillance of Trump campaign officials. So, it's being seen in very sharp terms here that it's being portrayed in this memo that this whole thing was ginned up as a way to get at the Trump campaign. I mean, that's the strongest way to put it, what's coming out of the memo. Now, people could see it different ways. Obviously, Democrats are saying this was written by two Republicans. Of course, it's going to be bad. But we haven't even had a chance to read the full memo yet, nor has the American public. So we don't want to cast certainly any judgments on it. You don't want to do that as a journalist. But we can't go too far beyond what we're saying right now. But basically, I'm just being told that what happened with this, the FISA court and the application of the FISA court was based on false information and should never have happened.
John,
so we'll see where it goes from here.
John, Howard Kurtz here. I mean, obviously the import of this is that it raises questions about the roots of the Russia investigation, which the Trump administration has been trying very hard to discredit. The dossier was always considered by mainstream media organizations, most of them, not including BuzzFeed, to be uncorroborated and unverified. But since there's been such a huge partisan struggle over the release of this Devin Nunes memo, he, of course, the Republican chairman of the House Intel Committee, isn't there likely to be a pretty strong counterattack from Democrats whose own counter memo has not been able to be released according to the committee vote, and they're going to say that this is cherry picking and that it has a lot of omissions in it?
Well, the reason why the Democratic memo hasn't been released, Howie, is because the Democrats have not asked for the memo to be released. It didn't go through the same process that the Republican memo did. It's got to go through a vetting process. It's got to go through a vote process. It's got to come here to the White House because it contains classified information. It was asked at a breakfast with the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, on Tuesday morning. Well, why don't you just release the Democratic memo at the same time? And Speaker Ryan made all those points that you want us to release this memo without it going through the same process that everybody demanded of the Republican memo. That just wouldn't be protocol. So if the Democrats want that memo out, it's a very simple process to go through, Howie, and they could go through exactly the same thing that Nunes and Gowdy did to get their memo out. But certainly, you're going to hear a lot from Democrats that this thing shouldn't have come out, that it's a slam against the FBI. It's in violation of national security and intelligence protection protocols. But we've heard all that already. So all we need to, what we're hoping to do right now in the immediate is to read this darn thing.
John, real quickly, and we're going to kind of toggle between you and Catherine, but before you go for right now, what do we know about this Democratic memo? Do we know the length of it or anything?
I know nothing about it.
That's a good question. Interesting. Yeah. All right. John, we'll come back Thank you very much. Now, let's go back to Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. So you heard me reading that excerpt, Catherine, and I hope I didn't force you to put your cup of coffee down because it's your work and your writing. But John and I were just talking about it, John Roberts, about Steele admitting to that DOJ